Knights can be used to absolutely crush your opponent in chess, at any level of chess, if you just learn how to master those knights. Now, here's how they move. I'm going to show you. Take a look, and we're going to cover this kind of fast because I know learning about the pieces is a little less exciting than getting into the game and the strategies of the entire game. So here's how this goes. If it's White's turn, you can take this knight that's on G3, and you can move in an L shape. It's actually upside down L in this case. It doesn't matter if it's an L or backwards L, upside down. You get the idea. That's how they move. You go 2 squares in one direction, and then you move over 1 square or over the other way. Or you can go 2 squares down this way, and you can hit F1 or H1. So a knight, in the center of the board can actually cover all these squares at the same time. A knight can attack or defend 8 squares at the same time if it's sitting here in the middle on d4, for example. But since it's currently on g3, I'm just going to show you how to hop around with your horse. So if it were White's turn, and just to show you, you can capture that one. If, Black was not paying attention and just moved a pawn, you could then capture the queen. If Black moved a pawn again, you could capture the bishop. If Black moved the pawn again, you can win the game by checking the king right here. The king is trapped by his own pieces, and it's obviously more of an extreme example, not so realistic in this case, but believe me, there's some incredible things like this a knight can do, and depending on the setup of the board. So in this case, the king is not able to move to defend itself. It's not able to capture the knight. It is simply game over. This is when the game is done, when the king has nowhere to go but to be captured on its next turn. And that is called checkmate. So I hope that was a helpful lesson about knights, and just to show you sort of how they work during the beginning of the game. If we have all the pieces on the board, most commonly you'll see openings like this. White would go what's called e4, Black would go e5, knight f3, knight c6. So in this case, the white knight is attacking the pawn and sort of fighting for the center of the board. These 4 center squares are very important to attack and defend and control. So Black responded by defending and attacking those same 2 squares. And then generally you might have, pardon me on that part, that was an accident. But after the knight moves on c6, you then would have like bishop c4, Italian game, or the Roy Lopez, which is bishop b5, and then Black might, develop a knight or, something rather. But then it gets into the middle game eventually, and you can try to place your knights on squares that make them most useful and make your opponent less capable of developing attacks. So you're going to use all your pieces with each other. You don't want to move your rook across the board and have it be unprotected the whole game, right? So you sort of move the bishop with your other pieces in mind. You move your pawns with your other pieces in mind. You protect your king with your pawns. You castle to protect your king. And there's just so many things you're going to learn throughout this process, but it's really exciting. So hopefully all that made sense. Remember, the knight moves in an L shape. That's 2 squares in one direction, 1 square in another. Or you could go 2 this way, 1 up. But it's always got to be in a 1-2 fashion or a 2-1 fashion. You can't move, 3 squares this way and then you make a big L. It's always the same size L. And I hope that works for you.